Welcome back to Commentary Box Podcast. I'm back and it's been a long time, I know, but we're finally back and we've got a new series of podcasts. This is the first one. We're here with Luke, who's a Nottingham Forest fan. How are you, Luke?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, you must be honoured to be the first one in the Premier League.
Oh, absolutely. First one for the biggest club. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, you claim they're the biggest club, but you've been on the podcast before.
I have, yeah. We previously talked about cheating in sport. It was quite an interesting episode, touched on the likes of Maradona.
Yeah.
Lance Armstrong, I think, probably had a mention.
Yeah, he did. He would have. But yeah, no, we're not talking about cheaters in sport today. We are talking about the mighty Nottingham Forest.
We are. Nothing better to talk about.
Yeah, well, making a return to the Premier League after
23 years out. So we were last relegated, I think, the year after I was born. So not something I particularly remember, but yeah, very, very glad to be back.
But yeah, you're a local fan, aren't you? So
yeah. I've
season tickets and
I've never actually had a season ticket, but I've always gone to a lot of games each season, gone to a lot of away games. So yeah, followed Forest all my life. So very glad to see them where a lot of fans believe they belong.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, Forest have had a bit of a crazy summer window, haven't they?
Yeah, to say the least. So, I mean, when we got promoted, our owner, Evangelos Marinakis, who's also the owner of Olympiakos, so he's got a lot of pedigree in football, he promised to give Forest a war chest with which they wouldn't be competing at the bottom. They would be competing sort of like with not necessarily the top teams, but, going for a comfortable mid-table finish. And fair play to the man. He has more than delivered on that promise.
Well, yeah, we'll go through the signings in a bit because I think there's a lot to go through with those.
16 now, the latest count's at.
I mean, so far
there'll be more to come.
Yeah, we've got another 2 weeks until the window finishes as well, and then who knows what can happen. I mean, Forest have been pulling in players like, I don't know, swatting flies. It's a bit mad.
Yeah, I mean the pull of the club. I guess you could say money talks, or maybe players are buying into the project. But either way, no, it's been an amazing transfer window.
The Steve Cooper project.
Yeah, definitely. We've had some players sign who say they've previously worked alongside him. I mean, like someone who we'll talk about in a little bit. He played with Steve Cooper at the Under-17 World Cup when England won. Mm-hmm. He was one of those crop of players. So yeah.
I believe we're talking about Jesse Lingard.
No, Morgan Gibbs-White. Actually.
Morgan Gibbs-White. Okay, so not that long ago.
No, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I'll pull out a stat for you just to start off.
Okay.
Right? To kick us off, the last 5 playoff teams to win the playoff and get promoted. So we have Fulham back in 2018, who spent a whopping 105 million.
Yeah, that's a comparison I've seen a lot over the last couple of months.
And they ended up getting relegated.
They did, yeah. They made some pretty poor transfers.
Then we had Villa the year after.
Yeah.
144.5 million. They just
stayed up by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, that was a ridiculous Grealish season, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's spending into the hundreds of millions.
Which worked for them, though, to be fair.
It worked,
but they're now a comfortable Premier League team, you'd say.
Yeah, but you could say that out of those two, it can go either way, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely go either way. Fulham again in 2020.
Yeah.
23 million, though. Not as much as the previous season.
No, well, I think that's when them alongside Norwich, they start to buy into the culture of becoming like a comfortable yo-yo club.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Fulham have always been, in the Premier League, drop back to the Championship, then back up, then drop down. And they tend to, last season they won the league, the Championship.
Very comfortably.
Yeah, very comfortably. And, I mean, they're one of those clubs, right, where if there was like a league in between the Premier League and Championship, it'd be perfect for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I understand why they do it because it's a very sustainable and safe model because there's obviously the worry always is you had it with QPR a few years ago is where you go back down to the Championship and you're saddled with players on massive wages. So as long as Fulham and Norwich keep acting in the way they do, they've got no worries of that because they essentially go back down with what is, apart from a couple of players, already a Championship squad. So, and it gives them a massive financial advantage over all Championship teams, especially with parachute payments. So they're just happy to keep bouncing up and down until maybe one season they eventually manage to scrape a 17th and stick in the Premier League.
Well, I think that is the goal for most promoted teams, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is to become a stable Premier League team.
Yeah,
before you can push on.
Yeah, just because the sort of financial gap between the bottom of the Premier League and the top of the Championship is just getting bigger and bigger. So like the goal in the first season is always just to like 17th. Obviously, you don't want to be in a relegation scrap. No. You 100% take it these days.
Well, looking at the next team, it was Brentford in 2021, and they did incredibly well in their first season. They finished 13th. Only spending 30 million.
Yeah.
So
Brentford are one of the best run clubs in English football and have been for quite a long time now.
I think so, and I think their manager has a really good system, and he sort of kept that same system coming from the Championship up to the Premier League.
Yeah, because he's had players that have been in that system for so long.
Yeah,
like the likes of Mbuemo and Watkins until he was bought, and other players like that. Ben Rama was another one who's now at West Ham. They didn't really have to make a huge amount of additions. Like the only sort of flagship signing they made was when Eriksen came in, and made a huge difference to bolstering them the season after. So no, they're a brilliant club.
They are, yeah, and I mean even the likes of Tony, they've managed to keep some of their better players as well, the ones that fit the system. You know, obviously the likes of Ben Rama and Watkins have been sold, but I guess when money calls.
Yeah, with Brentford as well, you always get the sense that because their scouting system is so good, they'll be able to easily replace those players. Like with Watkins, they picked him up from I think Exeter's youth academy.
Really?
Yeah, so they essentially bought, maybe it was like a couple of $100,000 or something, but it was essentially on a free.
Yeah,
and then they sold him on for 25-30 million, whatever it was, and that's the same with like all of that. They've never really spent, apart from when they signed Tony, they've never really spent substantial money on a player. So it's very impressive.
I mean, it's a bit like Leicester, isn't it? To a different scale, but you know,
a little bit. So like obviously when Leicester won the league, they had I can't remember the name of the guy, but they had this amazing scout who signed basically all of their players for that season.
Yeah, he got hired by one of the top clubs, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
I think Liverpool.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, so Leicester, and then since then they did a really good job regenerating their squad and bringing in players like Tielemans and Fofana, both of which look like they could go for big money this summer. So
Leicester Maddison.
Maddison as well. Yeah, possibly to Newcastle for something like 60 million.
Yeah, he's been linked to teams for years and just never moves. So who knows?
Yeah. I think he's always been quite an underappreciated player, Maddison, just because he's in a position where he's probably not ever going to get like a lot of caps in the England squad, just because there's so many other players in front of him, like Foden and Mount. But no, he's a really good player. I've always really liked him.
I think last season was the season where he fully put his mark on the league with his goal contributions.
I think so, yeah, because also when I think he had some fitness issues last season, and when he came back, Leicester were really struggling at the time. And he did bits for them.
Yeah, well, moving back to Nottingham Forest now. So what do you make of those stats? Because I see it as, you know, it can go either way when you spend that much money, and sometimes it doesn't even work, and it's a big gamble, right?
Yeah, it definitely can go either way, but I'd say in the case of Forest, they were put in a position where unless they wanted to go down and potentially challenge Derby's record points total of 11 points it was, maybe like 10 years ago, if they didn't make significant signings, I think they would do that. Yeah. Because if you look at our squad that came up, we massively overperformed, and we were so reliant on loan signings.
Jed Spence being one.
Jed Spence, brilliant right wing back. We had James Garner in midfield from Man U. He had a brilliant season. Keenan Davis up top, who he signed from Villa on loan in January. He was amazing. One of the strongest players I've ever seen. You had Max Lowe at left wing back, who was he got like injured a little bit during the season. Then you had to have Jack Colback come in to cover, who did a good job, but I'd be quite nervous with Jack Colback playing left wing back in the Prem.
But he's a bit of a Premier League veteran now, isn't he?
He is, but at the same time, I always said if Jack Colback was starting for us, I would have been quite disappointed. Yeah. And then also you had Brice Samba, who after the season ended pretty quickly, medically wanted to leave the club. Yeah. Which was quite a sad one. Lewis Graben, his contract expired in the summer. I feel like there's someone else I'm forgetting as well, another loan signing possibly. There were quite a lot of them.
So what? There's no cap in the Championship for the amount of loan players. I believe it's 4 per squad, per match day squad.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe 5 at a push. Okay. But yeah, it's a lot more than it, because in the Prem it's 2, I think. And it can't be one from more than one club.
Yeah, it's 2 in your whole squad total.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to bring in more than 2 loan signings.
Yeah.
Which makes a big difference because...
Yeah, it does. We had to think quite carefully about us. I mean, in the because there's a permutation where if you sign a loan player with an obligation to buy at the end of the season, that then doesn't count as a loan signing.
Okay.
Which is why at the start of the window we were signing so hard to sign Dean Henderson with an obligation to buy, which we weren't able to get, unfortunately. But that is what it is. But yeah, so I'd say in the case of Forest, we were in a position where we had to sign a lot of players, and I think we've gone about it in quite a good way, to be fair. Like it like as an outsider looking, it probably looks quite scattergun, but I think actually it's been quite calculated. Like we started by replacing all of the players who have gone.
Okay.
And then since then we've been like bolstering the squad and yeah, because like with 5 subs as well in the Prem, you do need a good bench, and ours just isn't up to par really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about those signings in a few moments. But let's quickly just discuss the other newly promoted teams. So Fulham, who have looked good at the start of the season.
They've looked really impressive. They've had quite a good window as well. I think it's gone under the radar a little bit. Like they haven't made a huge amount of signings, but they picked up Palhinha.
Yeah, he's a very good signing.
Yeah, from Portugal. He looks really good. Andreas Pereira from Man U, who I wasn't convinced by, but he's looked good so far.
I mean, he always had the potential at United, so...
Yeah, he does. I think he just gives the impression of a player who's a lot younger, just because he feels like so unfilled, whereas I think in reality he's actually like 27.
It's a bit like Lingard for all those years.
A little bit, like people
imagined him to be like 21.
Yeah, people still probably think of him as like a 21-year-old who's just like breaking through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess maybe we'll do predictions in a little bit. I still think Fulham are probably going to struggle this season. I think a lot of it is just early season bounce, which newly promoted clubs tend to have, and Liverpool looked really off when they played them on the opening day. But yeah, no, they've looked pretty good so far. So fair play. Also, I think Marco Silva is a really good manager. Quite underrated, I'd say.
Yeah, and the other one is Bournemouth. Bournemouth, you never know what you can get with Bournemouth. I mean, they rode their luck quite highly with Eddie Howe as the manager in their first stint in the Premier League. I don't know if it will be as successful.
If Bournemouth don't go straight back down, I'll be amazed. Obviously, their fans would point to the fact they won their game on the opening day of the season against Aston Villa. Aston Villa were dreadful that day. And Bournemouth, I think they're just going to play hoofball all season. I mean, that's kind of what they have to do with that. They had a good championship squad. Yeah. And you saw that a lot last season. But they struggled, to be fair. Like, they had a really good start to the season.
And they dropped really badly.
It got to a point where even though Forest lost we got 1 point from the first 7 games. With 2 games to go, we were in a position where if we beat Bournemouth, we would have then had it in our hands to finish in the top 2.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, there was this huge game against Bournemouth, second to last game of the season. But yeah, so they sort of like stuttered over the line, and they've made almost no signings of note this summer.
Ah, okay.
So I think they're going to really struggle. I'd be very surprised if Bournemouth don't finish bottom.
Yeah, it's we'll talk about the predictions in a bit, but we'll save that for a few minutes. But yeah, let's move on to those signings.
Yes,
and
I've got a list in front of me.
You have the list, and we're gonna go from the free ones up to the most expensive.
Yeah.
So
the first one we have Dean Henderson, who was, I think he was our second signing of the summer. Really, really good signing. I mean, if you're a newly promoted club, you're not going to get a goalkeeper better than Dean Henderson. No. He's looked superb so far. He's already saved Forest points. I don't think we win our second game against West Ham if Dean Henderson isn't in goal. I mean, he made some brilliant. He saved a penalty. So
he's a top class keeper, right? And I think it's absurd that United let him go.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you obviously in context, it looks a lot worse for Man U now because David De Gea has not had a good start to the season at all. And Dean Henderson was quite vocal afterwards about how he felt like he wasn't getting the respect he deserved at Man U, which you could say is a bit arrogant, but he's definitely justified it so far.
Well, I think that the goalkeeper position is the one position you have to be arrogant in.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you are competing against your counterparts, your colleagues, and there's only one spot. It's not like a defender, right, where you could fill in at like right back, or there's 2 centre backs, for example. With keeper, you're in direct competition with, your first choice keeper or the second and third choice keeper.
Yeah, because I suppose also managers don't really like to rotate the positions. They would rather just have a set keeper for the entire season And I mean, Henderson will be that at Forest, and I think he is going to save us a lot of points across the course of the season.
Yeah, and a good question to you would be is, do you reckon if he continues his form, he gets into that England squad?
Yeah, definitely, because I think England are, mainly just because England are quite poor in that position anyway. Like, I think the fact that Pickford has been starting for a few years now kind of shows like a lack of quality. I know Southgate trusts him, but at club level, he's not been great for a while.
Yeah.
And then the only other competition, really, you've got
Pope and Ramsdale.
Yeah, oh yeah. Pope is borderline, I'd say.
No, I think Pope is the best English goalkeeper.
Probably the best shot stopper, but I think one of the problems is that he's not very comfortable with his feet, which has always been an issue for Southgate.
Yeah.
I think Ramsdale would probably be my choice for a starting keeper at this point. But I think I'd be surprised if he doesn't get into the squad, just because at Forest it's like the perfect club to shine at as well.
That's the thing. I think he's put himself in a position to be in that England squad come November.
He's going to save a lot of shots.
Yeah.
So he's going to face a lot of shots. So yeah, if you want to like sort of really show off what you're all about, then a newly promoted club is the perfect place to do it, especially as a goalkeeper as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, move on. Let's move on to the next one.
So next we've got Brandon Aguilera, who is signed from, I might butcher the name, but Alajuelense. Something like that. He's a young Costa Rican player signed from a Costa Rican club. We've immediately loaned him back out. He's only like 18. He's just one for the future.
All right, yeah, fair enough.
Wayne Hennessy signed on a free from Burnley.
See, I think that's absurd. What's the point?
Well, it's just goalkeeper cover.
I know, but you know that Henderson's going to be the number one. Who was your previous keeper? It was Samba.
So we had Brice Samba was our number one, and he's gone. We sold him to Lons, and our backup keeper was Ethan Horvath.
Yeah.
Who has now gone to Luton, because I think he made it quite clear in the summer. He's American,
right? And
there's a good chance he'll start for them at the World Cup. So I think he made it fairly clear that he wanted to be at a club where he'd be playing.
Okay.
Because I mean, I guess a lot of players are probably thinking about that.
The World Cup is around the corner, so it does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had to get a backup keeper, because our only other one is a guy called Jordan Smith, who he's a popular figure at the club apparently, but he's not great. So I think Wayne Hennessy. I think as far as like a backup goalkeeper goes, he's good enough. I feel fairly comfortable with him coming in.
Again, he's like
playing in cup games.
Yeah, I mean he's been in the Premier League, seen it all pretty much.
Yeah,
so.
I think he's getting to that point now as well, as a lot of goalkeepers tend to, where they're just happy just being like a bench warmer for a better goalkeeper.
I'm not sure if you listen to the Ben Foster podcast.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen clips of him saying that he's happy to be a second choice keeper, and be that sort of motivator for the first choice keeper, young first choice keeper.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing, and like I'm sure he'll be aware of the fact that he'll come in for cup games and stuff like that. So I think it's fair enough. And like I say, Wayne Hennessy, I think he'll do a good job for us.
Fair enough
in the cups, because I'm hoping Forest just sack all of them off, to be honest, and focus on the league.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we've got technically a free, although not really, Jesse Lingard.
Yeah, this is the big signing of the.
This is the one that's got a lot of media coverage. Talk Sport spoke about this a lot when he signed.
Well, I think it's quite not controversial, but people have mixed opinions on this signing, because he was sort of deemed like, I think West Ham was in his sights, but they didn't want to pay him as much as he wanted. Forest have come in and pretty much just said, we'll pay you what you want. Yeah. Be our star man. And I think he needs that. He needs that in his career.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, like, he is a really good player, Jesse Lingard.
Yeah.
Like, I do think that, and we did see that at West Ham when he had that amazing half a season.
Yeah, I think he scored like 12 or 13 goals.
Yeah, and that was only in like 19 games or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was really good then. And I think I think we'll give him regular game time.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do a really good job. And I guess the reason why I said like not technically a free is because we paid him a big signing on bonus, which I think may have been, like you could argue he bought into the project, or maybe it's just because we were willing to pay more than West Ham.
It's the money. Let's be honest.
So I mean, in terms of it's quite hard to know exactly what the wage is. Like the flat wage apparently is only 80k, which I find quite hard to believe, and then could rise to about 120k a week with add-ons. But then there's also a big signing on bonus, which supplements that a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I think that's a big signing because of the creativity. He's a Premier League known
Yeah, it's a statement of intent, and one of the things you could sort of criticise Forest for all their business is very little. There's plenty of top flight experience in there, but very little Premier League experience, which does matter. So I think he'll be a really good figure, and I'm sure he'll be very popular in the dressing room as well.
Yeah,
which will help.
Well, I don't know. I've heard mixed things because I believe he was the one of the United seniors came out and said that there were 3 moles in the team,
Right.
and 2 of them were him and Pogba.
Okay.
So you never know.
I'm sure as long as things are going well, I think it would be fine. But I guess if we start to go on like a bad run of form, could be some disharmony in the dressing room, and then maybe players will start to look at the top paid players, which are Henderson and Lingard. They're on much bigger wages than anyone else at the club.
Well, are Forest paying all of Henderson's wages? Or are United still covering some?
I believe we're paying all of them.
Wow.
I think I want to say it's around the 150k a week mark, something
That's
like that.
That's a lot, because I remember he signed a new contract for United a few years ago, or last year.
As far as I'm aware, we're paying it all. So yeah, it's quite a lot of money, but
But again, like we said, you kind of need to spend to stay up.
Yeah, and I guess with Henderson, you could say that if we were to buy a goalkeeper in that position, we'd be paying less wages, but we would have paid the transfer fee, and he would not be as good a keeper as Henderson.
Well, if you were looking to sign Henderson, United probably would have wanted 40 or 50 million.
Yeah, whereas I think we were trying to pay something like 20 million, which was just never going to happen.
Well, that's what English tax is.
Exactly.
He's probably a 25 to 30 million pound signing.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Because he's English, he's that extra 15 to 20 million more.
Yeah, and I think now with what's going on at United, if it continues, there's no way that we sign him at the end of the season. If he has a brilliant season and De Gea continues to struggle, they probably just bring him in as their first choice.
They will.
Until they can find a genuinely world-class keeper to replace him.
Yeah. Fair.
So shall I do the next one? So continuing on with, so this is the final free transfer. Cheku Kouyaté, who was most recently at Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
He, for whatever reason, didn't re-sign with them in the summer.
Well, I believe what it was Vieira. I think he's like 34 or 35 now.
Yeah, he's only 32.
32?
Yeah.
So he wanted a 3-year contract, which Vieira didn't want to buy into.
Yeah, I suppose Vieira's trying to regenerate his squad quite a lot. He's made it a lot younger over the last couple of years.
I mean, I think that they're the second youngest team in the league. Second youngest squad.
Yeah.
Behind Arsenal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you sort of understand the reason why.
Yeah.
But he's still a great player to have in the squad.
It's Premier League experience. He can fill in at centre back if needed. He can play centre mid.
Yeah.
He's not the most exciting player, but he's a very safe pair of hands.
Well, yeah, he's versatile. He's solid. He does his job well.
Yeah, really good defensive numbers as well, which is something Forest were lacking with pretty much all their other midfield signings.
Yeah.
And also I wouldn't say we're weak at centre back, but some of our players there have really struggled over the last couple of weeks. The likes of Joe Warren and Scott McKenna, very good in the Championship, but I think they are struggling with the adjustment. So someone like Cheku Kouyaté to come in will be really good there.
Yeah. It's, again, experience is a big thing.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
for the promoted teams.
Yeah.
So, and a newly promoted team, because, I mean, Forest will have never experienced, a season like this in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the last time they played in the Premier League, it was the late 90s.
And it was
completely different.
Yeah, completely different.
Yeah.
So he's a good signing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the next one, I don't know a huge amount about. He's called Julian Biancone. He was from Troyes in Ligue 1. 5 million. He's a right centre-back cover, can also play right wing-back. So just a squad player, really. We needed some more depth at centre-back, so I think he'll do a good job there and can cover for one of the signings I'll talk about in a little bit at right wing-back if he was to get injured.
Yeah.
So that's a signing I think is pretty good. Then we've got, so this was a deal with Huddersfield. I think it was 10 million combined for the two. Lewis O'Brien and Harry Toffolo. So Harry Toffolo, was signed for cover at left wing back, but he's now our starting player there because another player picked up an injury, which I'll get onto quite soon. Lewis O'Brien is a brilliant signing. He was one of the best centre mids in the Championship last season.
For Huddersfield, right?
For Huddersfield, yeah. Really good player. Had a brilliant game in the playoff final. He was unlucky not to be given a penalty, but we don't need to talk about that. So I think he'll get a lot of minutes for us this season. I think he'll probably be one of our two starting centre mids, alongside, there's a few other players the other centre mid could be. But Huddersfield's quite an interesting one actually, because we We really did a number on them last season, so we knocked them out the FA Cup. We beat them in the playoff final where they should have had 1 or possibly 2 penalties. We then signed their 2 best players, and our owner took their manager and has now signed him at Olympiacos. And now, they're really struggling this season. So sorry, Huddersfield fans.
You've been talking about your owner for years now as well. It's quite a story.
Yeah, he is. He's a very interesting guy. So he's Evangelos Marinakis, shipping tycoon. He's got a lot of money. It's kind of hard to find the exact figure, but I'd say maybe about a few billion, which, well, relative to other Premier League owners, that's almost nothing. But no,
I mean, that's quite a lot.
It's quite a lot. I guess I'm just thinking about Newcastle and Man City.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't really compare
to
them. But yeah, no, he's like, fair play to him. Our owner before was a guy called Fawaz Al-Hazawi, who promised to put money in, and he did for a year or so. But then, as a lot of owners do, they tend to get bored when you don't get immediate success. Whereas Marinakis has kept putting money in, and we appointed a guy called Dave Murphy, who's our new CEO. So we've just got like a lot of really smart people at the top of the club now, which I think we've lacked for a while.
Yeah,
because we had this approach of, I know it kind of looks like it this season, but we've had this approach for a while of just making endless signings. But there would all be signings of players who were like well over 30, and then we'd be just left with these players who don't really care on big wages. So no, it's been good to see like a lot more of a targeted approach, let's say. Okay, so next you've got Omar Richards from Bayern Munich.
Yeah,
he was at Reading originally, really promising young left back, left wing back who Bayern signed. He's just not really getting the minutes though, which is fair enough,
Well, you have Alphonso Davies.
Yeah, exactly. He's
a number of players.
He's not getting in front of him. But unfortunately, with Omar Richards, we signed him, and then either it wasn't picked up in the medical or it happened very quickly in training. He has something called a hairline fracture, which I don't know exactly what it is, but it's I think it's a lot more serious than willing to let on, because originally they said he'd be out for a few weeks, and now they're saying a few months. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him like at all this season, to be honest.
Which is that's a poor miss, right? Because
if it was missed in the medical, that's really bad.
If it was missed in the medical,
£9 million.
Well, yeah, completely, and you can't even get insurance on those sorts of things.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
If he had a pre-existing injury, it's just not very good from Forest. If that was the case,
if that's the case, yeah, it's not great. And now as a result, we are now looking at signing another left wing back.
Another one. So the third one for the season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the coaching staff and medical staff will know better than me, how long if he's only due to be out for a few months, then we'll probably just live with Harry Toffolo and then Jack Cole back and come in as cover if need be.
Yeah.
So that's Omar Richards. Hopefully things work out with him. He looks like a really good player. He was very promising at Reading. He just hasn't had a huge amount of game time over the last couple of years. And the next player we've got, the one who I think might end up being our best signing, is a guy called Moussa Niakate.
Yeah, I've heard great things about him because he's a top centre back, right? In the German league,
so he's only like 20. I think he's 26. He's been the captain of Mainz for a couple of years now. We've only paid just under 9 million for him.
He had some of the top defensive stats in the German league, in the Bundesliga last season.
Yeah, he's like really good at carrying the ball out, brewing it in the air, really good in one-on-one situations. I think he looks like an absolute steal at 9 million.
Has he played the first 2 games of the season?
He has. He actually picked up a knock against West Ham. He limped off.
Yeah,
they've been quite quiet about that. So I'm hoping when the lineups come out later today, which is for the Forest v Everton game, I'm hoping he'll be playing because he's going to be a vital player for us.
I think he's one of those players that will lead. He was the captain, right?
He became the captain really early at Mainz.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a natural leader. I mean, I've seen a couple of clips of him. A really, really solid, bit of a beast. Player.
Definitely. Yeah. Super composed on the ball, which is something Forest need for the way we play.
And also, the Premier League is just so that you need to have one of those players that can win balls. Especially against the teams that Forest will be competing with towards sort of the bottom half of the table.
Yeah.
The likes of Bournemouth, like you mentioned, will be playing that long ball. Teams like Everton have Calvin Phillips, not Calvin Phillips, Calvert-Lewin up top.
Calvert-Lewin, yeah. When he's fit.
Bamford for Leeds.
Yeah,
there's a number of teams that play with big centre forwards, and And Niakite is, one of those valuable centre-backs.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the good things about the sort of backline that Forest have assembled. Although against teams like Man City, it will get ripped apart. It's just not quick enough, and it doesn't really matter.
No.
If we lose to Man City, if we lose 1-0 or 6, then I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah.
But against those lower teams that you talk about, where they do play more like hoofball type tactics, it's a really tall backline, and I think we'll be very well equipped.
Also,
with 3 big centre backs to deal with that kind of threat.
Yeah, and it'll be great for set pieces as well.
Yeah, definitely. We were a big threat
Going
from
forward,
set pieces last season. I think in the Championship we conceded the least goals from corners. I think we only conceded 1 or 2 all season. Actually, I think that was from set pieces in general. So we were really good at defending them. So that was a big thing for us. So yeah, I think Moussa Niakate will probably prove to be our best signing, even though we paid a lot more for certain other players.
Yeah.
So next up, we've got another one that I'm really excited about. This is quite a new signing who hasn't yet played. Remo Freuler from Atalanta.
You've been talking about him a fair bit.
Yeah, he's a really good player. He's a Swiss international central midfielder. He's got, must be something like 50 caps for Switzerland. I remember he had a brilliant game for them alongside Granit Xhaka when they beat France on penalties at the Euros.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Atalanta in general are just full of like really creative midfielders. Like we were being linked also with a guy called Malinovsky, a Ukrainian sort of attacking mid and winger.
Yeah, well, Atalanta, was it last season or the season before? They were the highest scoring club in Europe.
Yeah, they broke 100 goals in a season, which is just incredible for them. But they have a really low budget as well. They've been massively outperforming that for years now, and they've been able to get consistent top 4 finishes.
Yeah,
and Remo Freud has been a big part of that. Like he's a player that's very comfortable in possession, but also if you look at like stats in the Italian league, the amount he wins the ball back is ridiculous. He's amazing at pressing.
Does he play as more of an attacking mid or
no, more of a central midfielder? But I guess if he was playing in like a pairing with one of our other central midfielders, he would be the slightly more advanced one.
Okay,
whereas someone
like a number 8.
Yeah, whereas someone like O'Brien or Yates, when he comes back, would be the one that would more like sit and do a lot of the defensive work. But yeah, so it's good to have Freuler a little bit further up the pitch, just because he's really good at, like I say, winning the ball back higher up, and then he can set our pacey forwards on the counter, which is how Forest are going to play a lot this season.
Well, yeah, that's a good model to play with, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a good way for the Premiership. I think like Forest didn't have a lot of the ball in the Championship.
Yeah,
and when teams come up like Norwich have tried it a couple of times and try and have as much of the ball in the Prem as they did in the Championship.
Yeah, it's not working the same way.
Yeah, because Norwich will have like 60-65% of the ball, and then they'll go from that to they'll try and have the same amount, and it just doesn't work. Whereas Forest, we were very comfortable last season having very little of the ball. Like there was a game against Swansea where we had I think 30% of the ball.
Really?
And we set the EFL record that season for the most shots on target. I think we had something like 20, beat Swansea 5-1, and that was
30% possession.
Yeah.
So all on the counter.
Yeah. And that was sort of like the game that I think best summed up how Steve Cooper likes to play. And yeah, so I think Remo Freud, I don't think he'll come in immediately just because we have, well, I'm going to say a settled centre midfield. It's obviously not settled because they're all new players, but I think he'll start on the bench and he'll probably come off the bench maybe with about 60 minutes gone, probably replace one of our other central midfielders, and yeah, that's how there's a few players like that, to be fair, that we'll just have to slowly integrate into the team. But yeah, I think Remo Freud is a really good signing. Another central midfielder, Aurel Mangana from Stuttgart, so another player from the German league, for 12.7 million. So I can't say I knew too much about this guy before we signed him. I mean, that's the case for a few of these players, to be fair. But he's only played 1 game so far. He didn't play against Newcastle on the opening day of the season, but he started against West Ham alongside Lewis O'Brien.
So what, midfielder?
Yeah, midfielder. Yeah, central midfielder. And the two seem to form a really good connection quite quickly. Looks very solid and comfortable on the ball. He's got quite good defensive numbers without actually being that defensive midfielder. Picked out some really nice passes. Spray it about quite nicely. Yeah, he's obviously I've only got 1 game to judge this on, but he's looked very tidy so far.
Well, the thing with, I think German midfielders are like that, aren't they? They're very efficient. They're very energetic.
Because German football is kind of how Forest play. It's
the counter-attacking.
Apart from the likes of Bayern Munich, the teams really aren't that fussed about having a lot of the ball. It's all very counter-attacking. It's very
behind the lines,
vertical, back to front football. Just trying to like get there by playing I think as few passes as possible.
That is a thing, and a lot of it is based on the midfield battle. and about how quickly you can win the ball back, how quickly you can move the ball and get it to those guys that can play the passes in behind.
Yeah.
And, picking up players that fit that system.
Yeah,
good
definitely.
bit of business.
Yeah, definitely. That's why one of the reasons why I think when Forest gel a little bit more, they are going to be a really enjoyable team to watch this season because when their midfielders win the ball, it's not going to be like other teams where they just look to pick a pass like to the left or the right or behind. They're always going to be looking forward because that's just the way that their forwards are going to want to receive the ball. They're going to be immediately making runs in behind, or if not, you might have like a forward dropping off to receive the ball and then he'll pick someone up. So yeah, I think they're going to be a really exciting team to watch.
Yeah.
I think they'll should get better as the season goes on. Then next up, you've got Nico Williams, who's probably one of the better known players we've signed.
Yeah,
he had a really good. So he was from Liverpool. He was on loan at Fulham last season. I mean, I'd say the two best right backs or right wing backs in the Championship last season. The other one being Jed Spence.
So you had both of them. Well, now you have one after the other.
Yeah, so he was just a natural replacement, really. I think, to be honest, he'll be better suited to the Prem than Jed Spence will, because Jed Spence had better attacking numbers, but you would expect them to drop off quite a lot. Whereas he did look defensively suspect at times. And Nico Williams not quite as much going forward in terms of like ball carrying, but he puts a really nice cross into the box. Defensively, really solid. He's looked brilliant so far. He's man of the match against West Ham.
I think that those two things you mentioned are a lot more important in the Premier League. Is being able to defend and putting a good delivery in.
Yeah. Whereas Jed Spence, he didn't actually pass a huge amount. He would just carry the ball forward with his feet, which, like, obviously, like wide players in the Prem are going to be a lot better. Yeah, so you're just not going to be able to dribble past them as easily.
You say that, but he ran Arsenal ragged. That's true. That cup game.
That's true. Yeah, and Leicester, to be fair, as well.
Yeah, so is a guy that can do that. He has that potential to do that. He's at Tottenham now as well, which is the worst thing.
I mean, Forest fans would have loved to sign him. We all loved Jed Spence last season. He was a brilliant player, but as soon as it wasn't really about the money, it was more just as soon as Tottenham made their interest known, it was pretty obvious he wanted to play for like that top Premier League club.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really the right move for him. Like maybe he'll get more game time as the season goes on, but right now I think he's just gonna be a bench warmer for the time being.
Well, the thing is, Tottenham have Emerson, right, and Doherty, but Doherty doesn't play. He started playing as like a right centre back now as well. So eventually he will get game time. Yeah, and I don't think Emerson's very good.
Right. Okay.
So. He will get game time.
Yeah. I guess a lot of it is just whether or not Conte trusts him.
Well, he trusted him enough to sign him. It's a bit like like look at Sessegnon. It took him a season. Yeah. And now he's pretty much playing week in, week out for Tottenham.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
Another young player. A lot of trust has been put on him. So
yeah. But so Nico Williams looks really good. I hope it works out with Jed Spence because, like I say, he was a really popular player.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, maybe it could work out.
Not in a bad way.
Maybe at a different club.
At a different club, yeah. But not Tottenham.
Fair enough. Okay, so now we're moving on to our three big signings. I mean, I suppose quite a lot of these have been big signings, but this, as I remember, was our very first signing of the summer. A guy called Taiwo Awoniyi from Union Berlin for 17.5 million. Yeah, striker. Had a really good season. Scored, I think, 20 goals in. They only play 34 games in the Bundesliga, don't they? So he was like the third or fourth top scorer.
Okay.
His goals helped Union Berlin get their first European finish in quite a long time. They finished 5th, I think.
Yeah, they did have a good season last year, actually.
Yeah, so he looks like a really good player. I think a lot of our fans thought he was going to be in a similar mold to Keenan Davis, who was just unbelievably strong, could carry the ball forward, almost impossible to dispossess. He's not quite that kind of player. He's more of like a hit it in behind play and he'll run onto it. Okay. And he's a little bit of a target man in the box, which we saw against West Ham when we were pinging balls into him.
See, it's, that goal as well. I mean, just in the right place, right time.
Like obviously, if you've seen that goal, the one against West Ham, not a great finish, but like he got off the mark at the end of the day, which I think is the main thing. And he really important for him because he didn't have a good pre-season. No. He looked quite clumsy, had quite a poor first touch. He was starting to get quite a lot of stick from fans, which, I mean, if you're criticising players in pre-season, it's a bit weird, but... Yeah. But no, so I think he will be a really good player for us.
I think with all these signings, though, you've got to give him time. Yeah, especially coming from different leagues. Maybe, 2 or 3... Obviously, every game matters, but 2 or 3 months' time. I think especially with the World Cup break this year, coming back from that World Cup break, it's going to be quite important to have a group of players that fit the system, know how to play in the Premier League, and can perform.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not sure if it's actually an advantage or not, but I don't think too many Forest players will go to the World Cup, which is like a good thing in a way because they won't be as tired, but also there might be a lack of match fitness having not played for like 4 weeks or so. So that would be quite an interesting thing to see.
I think that will be a good thing, just because teams will play friendlies, teams will play behind closed doors matches, so it'll be like a second pre-season, but they'll already be they should be in good shape. Going into that pre-season.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than in the summer, you have a couple weeks off, and then you're going into a pre-season where you have to rebuild everything.
Yeah.
So it's more of just like they'll have a rest, but I don't know. I don't think many top teams will be affected by it either. And yeah, we can talk about this five sub rule, because I think it's absolutely bonkers.
I think that you can imagine the clubs who would be really in favour of it.
Yeah,
it just creates a big team bias, really, and it's one of the reasons why Forest have signed so many players, because it is a squad game. It's not just about being able to put out first 11. You do need a half decent bench as well.
Well, I think it's literally all come from Jurgen Klopp, hasn't it?
Yeah,
and he is, for me, one of the biggest moaners in the Premier League.
Yeah, I like Klopp, but he does go on a little bit.
Yeah, it's always about we've got the early kickoff on a Saturday, or we've got the late kickoff on a Sunday, or this or that, and
he sort of makes out as though like it's one rule for him and another for everyone else, which it obviously isn't.
No, but also your Liverpool Football Club, you're going to be on TV a bit more than other teams.
Yeah,
you're playing in all. You're going deep in all 4 tournaments, right? That you're playing in. So
and
you
they
can't
do
really
that because
complain.
they have one of the best squads in the world. So
you can't complain when you're competing for titles, and that's the reason why you have too many games.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the 5 sub thing, it's going to benefit Man City more than anyone else by quite a long way, I think.
I don't think so, because I don't think City's squad is as strong as as deep as a Liverpool squad.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's not quite as deep as it used to be. Like they have obviously Sterling's gone.
Sterling. I mean, Zinchenko.
Yeah.
And they've not got Aguero. Obviously, that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
But of course, their squad is very strong. I'm not saying that it's not. I just don't think it's as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
And I think Liverpool have overtaken them in the strength in depth.
But possibly not in terms of like a starting 11, I guess.
Yeah, of course. I think City will always have the most elite starting 11.
Yeah.
For the next few years at least.
For as long as Pep is the manager, I'd say.
Yeah.
And as long as the owners are willing to continue investing in
exactly.
Pep. But yeah, the 5 sub thing, like I get the logic behind it, but at the same time it is just there it will just create a bigger imbalance between top teams and lower sides.
Yeah.
Because if you're like a Man City or a Liverpool and you can just refresh your 11 around the 60-minute mark with players that are far better than the other team's players.
Half a team, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A whole half a team.
Half your outfield if you want to.
That's exactly what it is. And I mean, you can change your front 5 and have a completely new 5 and
and then because obviously you don't want to be rotating your defense mid-game if you don't have to. So then you've got already tied defenders with fresh world-class forwards running at you, and it's you can only see it going one way really. So I'm not a fan of the rule either.
No, but I also do think imagine you had that 5 sub rule, right? But there was a stipulation in there that to use the 4th and 5th, they have to be under a certain age, or
maybe one or two of those players have to be homegrown, something like that.
Yeah,
that'd be quite an interesting.
As in out of the 5, so you keep your 3 subs that they can be made whenever, whoever, but the 4th and 5th one have to be a homegrown or an under 21s player, or an under 23.
That'd be quite an interesting way of doing it, as opposed to just bringing off 5 world-class players that you all pay big transfer fees for.
Well, if you look at, say, Liverpool and what they could do, they would bring on Jota, Diaz,
Firmino, if he's not started, possibly Fabio Carvalho, who's looked really good so far.
Even in midfield, like a Naby Keita.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? They have the options. City could do the same with like Grealish, Foden, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva.
Yeah, Gundogan if he's not started, the likes of him.
Yeah, Calvin Phillips.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about Calvin Phillips. Yeah, it's crazy.
Even in defence, add on a third centre back, John Stones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I suppose Arsenal could benefit from it a little bit, but maybe not quite. I'd say Arsenal aren't really at the point where they have a particularly deep squad yet. They're more building out quite a strong 11 at this point, I'd say.
Yeah,
do you agree
I
with
mean,
that or not?
You say that, but I think we do have a team which, in certain positions, you can take out players and put in their replacements.
A lot more so than last season, I guess.
And it wouldn't weaken it as much.
Yeah.
There are obviously still a few positions, like if you took out Thomas Partey, we'd be struggling.
I saw that on Twitter the other day. Someone said we're one party injury away from completely falling off a cliff.
Well, last season, in the 23 games he played, we won 21 of them.
Really?
Yeah. So you can see like the impact he has.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I get what you mean, but it's not to the same level.
Yeah. That's fair enough.
Like the drop off is a lot bigger than your City's, Liverpool's, and even Chelsea.
Yeah. I think people forget just how good a squad Chelsea have. People seem to be like really undervaluing them just because they've had like a really tumultuous summer and year.
That's the thing.
Really squad.
Again, it's been that sort of a year for them, right? Is with the sale of the club, the issues with like say Lukaku, and I mean, but they've made some incredible signings themselves.
Yeah. I mean,
Raheem Sterling
isn't going to help them get nearer to the title necessarily, but he's a brilliant player, really underrated player.
He might do. He'll be the guy that will score 15 goals in that Chelsea.
He will. I guess I'm more mean by that. I just don't think he's the player that would get them above Liverpool or Man City.
No, yeah.
But he will. You know, it's more about like the top 4 race for every other team, I think.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of gone off topic. Yes. Let's get back to that list.
So we've only got 2 players left, actually.
A couple more.
Fairly recent starting, yet to play for Forest, may get a start today or come off the bench. That's against Everton. Emmanuel Dennis from Watford for 20 million.
He's a forward, right? He's a striker or a winger?
Yeah,
he
more
of
a striker, I'd say, but could drift out wide. Very quick. At Watford last season, he went off like an absolute rocket. He scored maybe like 14 goals for them all season, which is really impressive because Watford were really poor last season.
In the Premier League.
This is, But I think he got like 10 of those goals quite early on. Got like a handful of assists as well.
I do remember, like, I think he was the sort of shining light in that Watford team, him and Ismail Assar.
Yeah, definitely. Watford, he got very little supply line. They had a really poor midfield, very uncreative. But he wasn't just finishing chances either. He could like take players on by himself.
Yeah.
He could carry the ball a long way up the pitch. Scored a range of goals as well at edge of the box, a little bit of a poacher. Very quick. Very powerful. I think he's going to be a really good signing. Yeah.
It's just a shame he has 2 first names.
Yeah, that's true. When we were looking at signing, I kept forgetting if it was Emmanuel Dennis or Dennis Emmanuel. So with him, I'm not sure exactly where he's going to start along our front 2, I guess. But Brennan Johnson, one of our youth players, I'd say if he continues to struggle, he might get temporarily phased out, and then Dennis will come in for him and start alongside our knee. Yeah. That's one way I could see us lining up.
Because you do play a 4-4-2, don't you? Or like a 2 up top.
So it's more like a 5.
Oh, is it a 5 at the back?
3 centre backs, 2 wing backs. Then you've got like a 2 in midfield. Then you're 10, and then 2 forwards.
So like a 5-2-1-2 if we go.
Yeah, 5-2-1-2, I guess.
Go
or like,
FIFA formations.
Or like 3-4-1-2, depending on how far forward.
No, it's a 5. It's a 5. When it's wing backs, it's a 5.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
But like a 5-2-1-2.
Yeah.
So don't conventionally play with wingers, but like people like Brennan Johnson can drift out wide if needed. So it's a fairly fluid formation. I guess like the 10 can drop into midfield. Yeah. If we're under the cosh, as we will be a lot this season. So and then the final signing, as this is being recorded, only announced yesterday, was Morgan Gibbs-White from Wolves. Now the figure I've got
for a whopping 45 million.
So the figure I've got here is 42.5 million. The actual breakdown of the fees I'll just go into. So it's 25 million up front.
Yeah.
Then you've got another 10 million or so, which is in likely add-on fees. I don't know what they are, but And then you've got another 7 to 10 million in add-on fees, which are unlikely but could happen.
So a lot of these likely add-on fees will be something like once he hits 20 appearances or 30 appearances, they'll have to pay an extra 10.
Yeah.
The unlikely ones will be, like 20 goals in a season, and then you pay.
Yeah, we're not paying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be approximately about 35
About
to 40,
35, I would
40
guess.
million,
Yeah,
which I think is absurd for a player like Morgan Gibbs-White.
It's a difficult one because our manager made it quite clear that he was the number one player that he wanted to sign. We've been after him all summer.
Yeah.
But his transfer value has been, I guess because a lot of teams have been interested in him, it's just been steadily rising. Like we thought at the beginning of the summer we could maybe sign him for about 20 million.
Yeah.
Which I thought at the time seemed like quite a lot of money. But obviously my expectations have changed a lot over the last couple of months.
Well, I guess his value went up because he has been playing for Wolves. He played for Wolves the other day, didn't he?
I think he's played both games for them so far. Had a really good pre-season as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I mean, it's in the Championship, so it's quite hard to compare. But he was brilliant at Sheffield United last season. He actually missed the penalty that put Forest through to the playoff finals as well.
I remember that.
Agent Gibbs-White.
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny.
But no, I think I'm not sure exactly. I guess he'll play as the 10, but obviously we've got Lingard in that position. I kind of assumed when we played Lingard, he would be on like a nailed on start every game.
Yeah, maybe the formation changes, the system changes a little bit.
Possibly we could just go to like a 3 in midfield, and then Gibbs-White could play as one of those 3 because we have looked quite overrun in that area.
And it might be that Lingard plays just behind the striker as like a second striker.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, and then we don't play 2 up front. Yeah, it'll be. I'd be surprised if Steve Cooper deviates from the 5 at the back, because he's played that pretty much his whole career and he's a big fan of it.
I think it is quite successful in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think for a newly promoted club as well, it gives you the opportunity to be quite defensive, while also on the counter you can fling a lot of players forward really quickly. So yeah, I think it's the ideal way for Forest to play. So I'd say unless things are going really badly, we'll keep playing, broadly speaking, the same formation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it would just be interesting to see how all these players line up. It's a nice problem to have, I guess, when you're not sure how you fit all these into your best 11.
Yeah, I guess so. But would there be any more signings that you'd want? And don't get greedy.
So possibly another left wing back. This is contingent to Omar Richards and what's going on there.
But this is becoming greedy now because you've got 2 left wing backs already in this window.
Well, we have, but the reason I say that is because Omar Richards could potentially be out for quite a long time, and then we've only got Harry Toffolo, who's okay, but I think he's a good Championship player, really. Mm-hmm. I'm not convinced he's good enough for the Premier League.
Any players in mind?
So we were looking at a guy called Estupiñán from Spain, but Brighton have actually beat us to that signing, unfortunately.
Oh, is he the Cucurella replacement?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So no, I don't actually. To be honest, I kind of just trust in the recruitment team at this point.
Fair.
But yeah, Estupiñán would have been a really good signing, I assume. If Brighton picks someone up, I tend to think he'd be quite good.
Yeah, they do. So
we were being linked quite heavily with Neil Maupay. Apparently, we'd agreed terms with the club, but I'm not sure. Apparently, Maupay was being quite difficult and like considering his options too much. So Forest have pulled out of that deal. So it looks like he could go to Everton instead.
See, I think that's a stupid signing for them as well.
Why? Just because you don't think he'll score enough goals?
Well, yeah, because look at how many chances Brighton create. Yeah, he's a decent player.
He's a really good technical player, but Brighton had that thing over the last couple of years where they were like the big underperformers of XG.
I mean, they were. They created so many chances, and Neil Maupay just wasn't there to finish them off.
He was their main striker, so I guess he has to take a lot of the blame for that. Yeah. He hasn't typically scored a lot of goals, so I'm not too upset that we haven't got Maupay. I don't think he'd be a good player for us, but
I think what he's been doing for the last few years is living in a Ty from Arsenal Fan TV's head.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Because Ty just hates Maupay after what he did to Leno. But it was just like a coming together, and Leno got injured for the season.
I won't take anything that Ty says too seriously. Yeah. He's a strange man.
I did not say that. These views aren't mine.
Yeah, sorry, they're my views. Sorry, Robbie. But yeah, so apart from like, I guess like maybe another like young forward, but if we don't get one, I'm really not that fussed. Like I think we've got enough. You've got Emmanuel Dennis, you've got Awoniyi, you've got Johnson,
plenty of
you've
strikers.
Got Sam Surridge, who I guess can come on.
Didn't he score the other day for the opening game, he scored.
Forest have only scored 1 goal so far, and that was
Only
yeah,
the little deflection onto him.
yeah, the shinny. But yeah, so to be honest, like obviously, well, I'd say I would like it to sign more players, but like the worry is always like how realistically how many players can you integrate in one season? Like you've got if you take Aguilera out, who's been loaned back, you've got 15 players here, probably about 11 of which will regularly start.
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's almost unheard of, I'd say, for like a Premier League team.
that is. I don't think a team has ever signed that many players.
No, or if they, I mean, like Forest probably having a window, but yeah, for like a top flight club, it's like
in the Premier League.
Yeah,
because you mentioned Arsene Wenger and his theory of only signing 4 players in a season max.
I think he said like if you're going to sign like 4 players who are going to get a lot of minutes in the first team, that's realistically the most you can integrate in one summer. And I guess that's the more sustainable way of doing it. But like for Forest, clearly the owners felt that they needed this big summer first to basically sign a completely new squad. And I think it's fair enough, to be fair. Like I said earlier, if we hadn't made a lot of signings, we'd go straight back down. I'm really confident of that.
Well, it's a bit career mode-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a bit career mode-esque.
I guess you could argue that a lot of these young players will have, if they do well, they'll have good sell-on value in a couple of years.
Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, you can hope. I mean, you can also hope to stay up. But let's move on to some Premier League predictions. Because I haven't actually done any. I haven't made any yet. So these are we'll go through sort of the top half of the table and the relegation.
Okay.
And then a couple of other things. But let's start off with relegation.
Okay, so I think Bournemouth will finish bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fulham will finish 19th, and I think Everton will finish 18th.
Oh wow! Okay, before you get on to why, I agree with you on the Bournemouth and Fulham, but my 18th would have to be Southampton.
You're not going to predict Forest to go down?
No, I actually think Forest will finish 14th or 15th. Okay. Yeah, they'll have a pretty good season for. Cool. So yeah, why Everton?
Yeah, so really bad end to last season, or just a bad season in general. Really, they stayed up and it was either like the last or the second to last day, and I think a lot of that, to be honest, was just because Goodison Park got behind them so much and created this ridiculous atmosphere that just got them over the line. And since then, I just haven't really seen anything from them that's going to make them any better. Like they signed this Belgian midfielder called Onana, who looks pretty promising. They paid quite a bit of money for him, like 35 million or something.
Yeah, Big Al made a joke about him.
Oh really?
Big Alan Shearer.
Well, what did he say?
Have you not been seeing the?
Was this a joke on Twitter?
No. So he's recently been doing this song thing on Match of the Day.
Right.
So he started with Valerie from Southampton. Okay. And then he was doing Onana.
Oh right. Okay.
On the second week, so we'll see what happens this week.
Yeah, classic Alan. I haven't actually watched Match of the Day.
No, I've just seen those clips.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, so and then they've obviously lost Richarlison, who's never put up amazing numbers for Everton, but he's still by far their best forward.
Yeah,
Calvert-Lewin is injured at the moment, so he's not going to be playing the first month or so of the season, and he's got I really like Calvert-Lewin, but really bad injury record, so I won't be surprised if he ends up missing quite a lot of this season. I just don't really see where the goals come from for them, especially if I think Chelsea are pushing quite hard to sign Anthony Gordon.
Yeah,
which
they
would
are.
weaken them even more, and then if he was to go, they might not have the time to bring in a good replacement. So, yeah, and also Frank Lampard, I'm not convinced by him as a Premier League manager. I think if it wasn't, I have this thing where I think players like Lampard and Scholes and Gerrard, because they were really good midfielders, people tend to assume that they're like the most intelligent players.
They're not.
So they will. So like when it comes into management, that will like naturally translate to. I guess Pep probably did quite a lot for that because he was like a really intelligent midfielder.
Exactly.
Whereas I think if Lampard didn't have like the stature or he was like a centre back or something as a player, I don't think he gets given the Premier League job. I think he would have to apply his trade. Well,
the only reason he got given the Premier League job at Chelsea in the first place was because he's a Chelsea legend.
Yeah.
And yeah, so moving on to who I reckon's getting sacked first, and that is
Lampard.
Frank Lampard.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I just think Everton are going to be in the mud come the World Cup break.
Mm.
They'll be, get a handful of wins max.
Yeah.
Probably sat in relegation.
Mm.
They have made some good signings though, like Tarkovsky and Tarkovsky's
Connor Cody they've
Connor
signed as well,
Cody.
haven't they? Yeah.
So they've bolstered that defense.
I think they'll be
but-
solid. I just think they're going to score so few goals.
Yeah, they
I just
won't
don't
be
think
able to
that
score
Lampard
goals.
is a good enough manager to get a lot out of his forwards.
Yeah.
He was just so reliant on Richarlison to do all the creative work last season.
Yeah.
And he's gone. I think he'll be a huge miss for them.
No, he definitely will. And Calvert-Lewin missing out. I mean, he's always had injury issues. So he was there. He's supposed to be their 15 to 20 goal a season striker.
Oh, and he would be. He's easily good enough for it. But his injury record over the last couple of years has just been turgid, which is a shame because he offers something completely different. He's probably the best header of the ball in the Premier League.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But you don't think Everton are going to go down? You think it's going to be Southampton?
No, I think Everton will finish 17th.
Okay.
And Southampton will.
Right, okay.
It'll be close, though.
Why Southampton?
I just don't... I mean, they don't ever improve their squad, do they?
No, I mean, they've made a few signings this summer, but they've all been, as I've seen it, more like for the future signings or very young.
Well, that's the thing. So I think Ralph Hasenhüttl is a very good manager.
I do. I always feel quite sorry for him. I think he gets a lot of unfair stick.
Yeah, he does get a lot of unfair stick, but also they don't get to sign anyone. He doesn't get to sign anyone. But I think the fact that, I mean, they don't really have... They lost Broha.
Yep.
Goal scorer.
Yep. He was a really good player for them last season.
Obviously, Ward-Prowse is still there, and he's going to do like good things for them. But
from set pieces.
From set pieces, yeah. Well, and open play. He's not just a set piece merchant, but I mean, you can't do it on your own. Players like Redmond and some of the other like Romeu, and they're just not good enough.
Yeah, Romeu is a solid enough player, I'd say. He'll do a job. Like Redmond, I've never really been convinced. No. I've always thought he'd be better suited like a Norwich when they're in the Championship. That would be like his sort of level.
Well, he did play for Norwich, didn't he?
Yeah.
So it does fit.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, who do you reckon will go down? Get sacked first?
I think Lampard's probably quite a good shot. To be fair, maybe. I think it could be Steven Gerrard actually. Yeah,
so that's another one. So in this relegation battle, I think this is one of the worst quality of teams in the Premier League scene in like the last maybe 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, possibly.
Just because I think there's so many teams that could get relegated, right? So Southampton, Everton, Villa,
Leeds possibly. All the Leeds fans think they've replaced like Calvin Phillips really well, but
and Rafinha,
yeah.
Impossible. Leeds as well will be in that fight. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying Leicester will be in that fight, but you know they've dropped a few levels.
They'll experience a big enough drop off that will be considered a bad season for them.
Yeah. What other teams? Couple more.
Yeah, a couple more. They're just not springing to mind at the moment, but they are there.
Yeah, United.
Man United. Forest are unfortunately one of them.
Yeah, Forest will also be in that scrap.
Yeah.
But you know, the likes of I think Aston Villa and potentially Forest. We'll see how it goes in the first few weeks and months. They'll have enough to stay up.
I hope so. I mean, I don't think Villa will be in that scrap. I just think that their expectations are a lot higher.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I think people have a little bit of an overinflated sense of Gerrard as a manager just because obviously he did really well at
Rangers.
At Rangers, but that's like generally speaking a lower than championship level of football.
Yeah, so with
Celtic and Rangers out.
With Aston Villa though, so I did a podcast a few years ago and this was last year after the Grealish departure, and it was on how like the chairman came out and said about how they're going to spend their money. Yeah. And that was when they signed Buendia, Bailey, and one other player.
Yeah.
Was it Ings?
Yeah, it was with Ings, which I actually thought they were really good signings.
3 great signings, right? In 3 positions that they did need. And they've performed fairly well, just not to the level that they could.
Quite a lot of injuries as well with Buendia and Bailey.
And even Ings hasn't scored the same amount of goals he was at Southampton when he got his England call up. And they can do it, but Villa have spent that money pretty well.
Yeah.
And then the signings of Coutinho and Diego Carlos now, Digne, You know, they've got a good team on paper. They should be fighting for that top 6, which is maybe
not top, definitely top. They
top
should
8.
They should, yeah, like in
Top
and around like 9th, 10th, I'd say is probably where their squads are. Like either way, they shouldn't really be anywhere near the relegation zone. So I think whereas someone like Frank Lampard could maybe be given a little bit more leeway.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced they will with Gerrard, which is why I think he could potentially go first.
Yeah.
So and like with I suppose with that question, like you'd normally lean towards the relegated teams, but there's no way that Bournemouth will sack Scott Parker.
No.
Or not early on anyway. I don't think Fulham will sack Marco Silva.
No.
For till at least like Christmas.
It normally is an existing Premier League team's manager that gets sacked.
Whereas, and then like Hasenhüttl as well. I couldn't really see it there. I think the club,
No.
even though they won't invest, they put quite a lot of faith in Hasenhüttl.
Yeah.
And I think he is. Well, if he was to leave, I think he would go on to a better club anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's go to the top of the table now.
Okay.
Who's your winner?
Well, it's going to sound a bit obvious because of the way the season started, but I would have said this before. I think it's going to be Man City.
Yeah,
more comfortably than last season as well.
Same. Second?
Still Liverpool, even though they haven't had the best start. But I think they'll end up finishing second by quite a long way as well.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I do think they lack a lot in midfield. So they currently play, their 4 midfield options are Fabinho, Thiago, who are top quality both of them. Yeah. But then it's that third midfielder, the Henderson.
Yeah, like Milner's been playing there a little bit, hasn't he? Which isn't ideal.
And the fear I have for Liverpool, not really a fear, but it's a worry for Liverpool fans would be what happens when Thiago gets injured or can't stay fit, you know?
Yeah.
Fabinho's tended to stay fit, but Thiago hasn't. And what does happen? They lose that creativity in midfield. They'll end up having to play Henderson and Milner or like Henderson and Naby Keita.
Yeah, you lose a lot of control as well, don't you? Because even though Thiago doesn't always play like the incisive pass, he's arguably the best player in the world at the moment at just like keeping the ball and keeping things ticking over. He's so good at that. And like I think that's why That's why I always think Man City will win the league because they
keep the ball so well.
Yeah, although it doesn't work out for them the same in the Champions League. It's just I guess a completely different format in the league. They just have too much control over 38 games to not win enough of those games.
Yeah, for 30 to 33, 34 of those games, they dominate.
Yeah, exactly.
From the first minute till the last.
Yeah. And apart from when they play Liverpool, because obviously Liverpool are a match for them, the only way they ever lose games is when they just get caught out on the counter. That's the only way they ever concede goals to other teams.
But even then, they have the players to deal with that. Like Kyle Walker, probably the best, recovery defender in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think they are. I don't know if I don't think Liverpool will finish second.
Where do you think they'll finish? Or do you want to do like a top 4 thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so shall I say mine?
Yeah, go for your.
Okay, so I think Man City first, Liverpool second. It's difficult, It's for everyone now. It's like 2 or 3 teams. So Man U, I don't think will be anywhere near it.
I think Man U finished 7th.
What do you think? Newcastle are going to finish 6th?
No, Wolves.
Okay, that's an
very
that's an interesting show.
Well, maybe Wolves, maybe Newcastle.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay,
a team other than United.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, so I think 5th will be Arsenal.
5th?
Yep. I think 4th will be Chelsea and 3rd will be Tottenham. Which is harsh on Arsenal because they have started the season really well, and I do think they're a lot better than they are last season. But I just think Conte is going to sort of impose his will on Tottenham enough that they will just be like, Tottenham don't need a lot. I think to get over the line, they've got 2 brilliant forwards, and they'll be very solid, and I think that'll be enough for them. And then Chelsea, I think people are just really undervaluing at the moment. Yeah,
which is why I'm going to go slightly out there.
Okay.
So I reckon City City will finish first by a long way.
Yeah.
Like about 15 points, right?
Okay.
And then it will be close between second, third, 4th, and 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So out those 4 teams will be Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham.
Yeah.
I don't think Liverpool will finish second. I reckon they'll finish 4th.
Okay.
I reckon Chelsea will finish 5th.
Right.
Tottenham will finish second, and Arsenal.
Okay. So I thought we were going to have an Arsenal second.
No. So I just think Arsenal and Tottenham will go slightly under the radar. They'll both be the teams that like they won't drop as many points to the lower half teams, which I think Arsenal have been good at over the last few years anyway.
Yeah.
It's now, can we compete against the likes of Liverpool and City? And last season we showed that we can put a decent enough fight against them.
Yeah.
We just didn't get over the line.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it with Arsenal. Like, there's always this thing about Arsenal about having like quite a soft centre.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure if that's been fully addressed. Like Thomas Partey's solid enough, but he is only one player.
Yeah, I mean, but I compare that to Tottenham. Tottenham have the two world-class strikers, Kane and Son.
Yeah.
They also added Kulusevski and Richarlison, which is very good.
Yeah.
But can their defence hold up?
I think it probably can, just because Conte's the manager, and even though they won't be as exciting to watch, I think Conte will over a short term, 2 years or so, will just bolster a defence.
So they currently they brought in Christian Romero last season. They brought in Longley this season from Barca, and they still play Eric Dyer.
Eric Dyer's been really good.
He's been good, yes,
centre-back.
But at some point, something goes wrong for that Tottenham defence in my eyes.
Well, I think that's just because more of like a general view of Tottenham is Spursing it up.
But then I did say they'll finish second.
Yeah.
And the reason why with Liverpool, I think they're just a bit weaker this season. They might push for those cup competitions as well. Because I think it's quite clear that City will win the league.
Yeah.
They will push again for the Champions League, both the domestic cups.
Yeah.
Which might see them slip a bit in the...
Well, you feel like City are always like on the cusp of a quadruple, don't you? But they've never quite managed it. And then the Champions League is like a whole weird thing for them. They just seem to have like they have like over like 180 minutes of a tie. They'll control it for 175 minutes.
Yeah.
Then just have like 5 minutes where all their players fall off a cliff. And that's exactly what happened against Real Madrid. So yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah. Then how about let's have a look at the top scorer, the Golden Boot winner.
Ooh.
There's a couple of mentions. So I mean, we've obviously got the Haalands, the Nunez that have come into the league this season. But then you also have from before, your Salah, your Kane, your Son.
I'm gonna go Kane.
Kane.
Yeah, just because I think with I was gonna say Haaland, but I think with them they will share the goals around a little bit more. And a lot of the time, like you see Haaland make runs into the box that they don't always pick up, because a lot of the time it's just Haaland like diverting players away to make space for everyone else. So I think because they play that way, and then they've got like wingers coming in and stuff like that. Yeah. Even though Haaland, I think, will score, I think he'll probably end up getting like low 20s or 25, something like that.
Really? That's a lot of goals though.
Yeah, maybe low 20s, let's say. Yeah, I think they'll just be shared around a lot more. Whereas I think the way that Conte's Tottenham will play, I think that the sort of percentage of goals that Son and Kane score will just be ridiculously high. Yeah. Compared to like the rest of the squad. I can just see Kane scoring a lot this season. And he's
But that you say that, but I think Kane will play a slightly deeper, more creative role this season, like he did last year. Yeah. I think he'll be up there with the assists, but I don't know. I don't think it'll be Kane.
Okay, who do you think it will be?
We haven't even spoken about Salah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of this is like recency bias because Liverpool haven't started the season very well, so I'm just kind of like clouded by it. But no, Salah will be up there. Yeah. Still.
I do see him winning it again.
Okay.
I don't see as many goals coming from the other guys in the team.
Yeah, I mean, Mane is going to be a big miss for them.
He was their best player, in my opinion. So
possibly, last season.
As in overall. Yeah. The overall play. Okay. Obviously, Salah, incredible finisher. Incredible goal scorer. Yeah. But Mane, a lot of things came through him. Yeah. And then
it's also just having like that much pace on both wings, which they just don't have anymore. And like Jota and Firmino offers something interesting.
And Diaz. Diaz as well.
Yeah, I forgot about Diaz. Diaz, even though Diaz isn't going to score a massive amount of goals, he's a brilliant player.
Yeah, incredible.
And then Nunez, I don't know. I'm not sure about Nunez.
I wasn't convinced when Liverpool signed him.
I think he'll suit Liverpool really well just because he like bounds about a lot. He goes a huge amount of the pitch, and he's sort of like he causes chaos, I guess, which is like what Klopp loves. Yeah. But I just don't know if he's technically good enough to score a massive amount of goals. Like, I think he'll probably end up getting 14, 15.
Yeah, I'd say about 15. Yeah. Maybe if he has a good run of games hitting 20 max. But
Yeah, I mean, he'll be out for a couple now, I guess. So,
and you know what? I reckon he'll be like that. It will happen to him again as well. Another red card,
yeah,
another
because
suspension.
I actually watched back some clips from that, and Joachim Andersen was just winding him up all
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
He obviously had the plan to do that.
Yeah,
And you could just see him getting more and more riled up.
and
That'll be a thing that all
Yeah.
of his centre backs will know about now, that you can get to him in that way. Like, even if he doesn't end up headbutting you,
no,
you just know that mentally he can be got at.
yeah.
So it's like a big weakness to show 2 games into the season.
What about Gabriel Jesus?
No, he's looked very tidy so far. Looked like a brilliant player. I mean, I've always really liked Jesus. I think it's just it's the same with Zinchenko, where players are made to look quite average
Because
in
there's so
City's
many
team,
others.
because they're surrounded by just other world class players. I think the only thing with Jesus, although he has already scored, has he scored 2 goals?
3?
He scored 3 goals.
3
okay.
goals.
Yeah, so although he's already scored 3 goals, I always thought he's not as clinical maybe as you'd like him to be.
Yeah, he could have had 5 in our second game, 4 or 5 goals. He scored 2, but
Yeah,
he could have had 4 or 5.
Maybe he's like a scorer of really good goals, but in terms of one-on-ones and the chances you'd expect him to bury, he won't get as many as you'd like. But he's definitely going to improve Arsenal.
Yeah.
As I think Zinchenko's I think he could end up being the signing of the summer as well.
Do you think?
Zinchenko? Yeah.
I think he's a quality player, footballer.
Yeah, you always see it whenever he plays for Ukraine, he plays centre mid for them.
Yeah, he does.
He always looks a cut above everyone else.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that when Ukraine, they lost, but when they played Wales in the World Cup playoff final, he looked brilliant in that game.
Him and Yarmolenko.
Yeah.
And the final one, like a breakthrough player in the league. Like a young talent breaking through. I didn't even think of an answer for this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one. Could Haaland be classed as a breakthrough player?
No. Okay. He's a world-renowned household name.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, I'll just give like a mini answer to this first. I think Brennan Johnson at Forest is going to have a really good season.
Yeah, we can make. That's a Forest-related answer. That's fair enough.
So I think he's only just turned 21. So he's and he's obviously no top flight experience at this point, but he's come off the back of an amazing season in the Championship, like plus 10 goals and assists. And I think he'll get better as the season goes on. Like he did score against West Ham, but it was offside unfortunately. But it was like a really nice dink over the keeper. So I think he's going to impress a lot of people. And if he has another good season, I won't be surprised if one of your top clubs puts in a big bid for him. Outside of that, I'm trying to think of a young player at a club who I think is going to break through. Maybe I'll just stick with Brennan Johnson.
Fair. Maybe I was thinking of Fabio Carvalho.
Yeah, that's quite a good shout. I mean,
he won't get much game time though.
He'll come off the bench in most, because that's the thing with the 5 sub rule. He'll come off the bench in pretty much every game, and he has looked quite dangerous so far. He's all right. Okay, I'll give my answer. Harvey Elliott.
Okay.
Yeah, although I suppose he has kind of already broken through, but I think he's going to see a lot more minutes this season.
Not as much as he could do. And he will feature a fair bit for Liverpool this year.
Yeah, and I think the fact he can play centre mid and sort of as a wide forward winger type player will help as well. So I think he's going to have a really good season.
Well, there you go. And your final prediction of where Forest will finish?
15th.
15th.
Yeah,
fair.
I kind of just think about that by thinking which of the teams that I can see is finishing above. And I can only really make the argument at the moment for about 5, I'd say, just because of how unsettled the squad is.
Hey, but the Premier League never finishes as you would think it would finish.
Yeah, that's very true.
It throws up so many little surprises.
Big surprises. I mean, with Forest, I think if we can just be in the hunt around Christmas, I think we'll be okay. Because like I say, I think we will get better as the season goes on, as partnerships are formed. And I'm sure we'll get battered in a few games, but I think by and large we'll be okay.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see over the coming months. This is the first podcast of the little series, the Premier League series. First of 20, hopefully. And hopefully is a big word in this. Yeah. Because
the season will be about over by the time you put the last one out.
put the first one out. Yeah. No, hopefully. But follow everything to make sure you don't miss the second one if it comes out. And thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been fun. I always enjoy talking about Forest.
Of course. Up the Forest.
Come on, you Reds.